Hello again and welcome to Business Nigeria, the first edition for the week where we bring you latest happenings in the world of business across the country. I am Tolulokpe Ogujobi. On today's program, we shall be having an in-depth analysis and expert's perspective on foreign exchange policies and the market, as it is no longer news that Nigerian Naira has been strengthening against the United States dollar in the parallel market. And to discuss this, I have with me in the studio a financial analyst and senior partner with Brain Trust Insights, Kunle Olomofe. Thanks for your time with Business Nigeria.
Thank you, Tolu.
The Nigerian currency, the Naira, has long suffered consistent depreciation in the money market. But recently, regulatory authorities took definite actions to strengthen the value of the currency. More than $1 billion had been pumped into the interbank market since January, the effect being oversupply of dollars to end users. Consequently, we have seen the appreciation of the Naira in both the official and parallel markets. Indeed, Kunle,
Yes.
we've seen this. It's clear because we know the exchange rate, what we used to be and what we have now. Would you say this is really a step in the right direction?
It's an excellent step. It's an excellent step. And it should have been done a lot sooner, as I'm sure we all know. There's a reason why the dollars, basically the dollar currency has been held back from Nigerians for a time. It's not something that we discuss very often, but I think it's important to discuss it as well. The government had a strategy, and the strategy was to basically starve Nigerians of the foreign currency to encourage an inward, as it were, creativity. It didn't work out too well. And anybody that would tell you that if you want people to be creative, you have to give them an enabling environment. And that's what I think the government is figuring out now.
But many have also argued that giving the funds for PTAs,
Yes.
for BTAs,
Yes.
for medicals and
Yes.
all of that,
Yes.
that they've not really addressed the real sectors, looking at the manufacturing sector, looking at the agricultural sector. We're talking about diversification.
Yes.
Why are we not looking deep down into those sectors and now encouraging health tourism and all of that?
Well, I have to actually disagree with that point of view. I saw a guest of yours that talked about this, and I think it's a completely wrong viewpoint. It's like people don't have, I talked about an enabling environment. You have to create an environment where people can thrive before you can ask them to grow, right? So the problem is this: people are already spending money outside of the country. We're in a global economy. You can't, completely shut us out from the global economy and insist that we should spend money only within the country. You have to encourage us to, gradually get into that mood, get into that zone where we spend money on local things alone. But even at that, you can't only spend money on your own local items. Now, talking about, the other industries, agricultural and manufacturing and all that, it's all well and good. Tolu, I've said this, I don't know if I've said it on your show, but I've said this on TVC more than a dozen times, and I hope the government is listening. Those are not really the sectors to focus on right now. Those are long-term sectors that we should focus on over a long-term period. You can't solve Nigeria's problems with agriculture. It's going to take, 10 years, maybe 15 years to get to where we're going? We have no systems in place. The policies are not working. The processes are not working. The experts are not in place. How are you going to make money from that in the short term? There are industries, however, where this money should be pumped in. I agree with the PTA, the BTA, and the medical, tourism. There's nothing wrong with that because we don't have those those things taken care of here. So allow people to do whatever they need to do in the meantime while you build the system. Now, talking about this real quick, about the other industries. I've mentioned this before many, many times. And what's important to note is this: the information technology industry is basically completely ignored. It's one of the most, if not the most powerful growing industry in the world as we speak. Nigeria has some of the best brains in information technology anywhere in the world. What is the government doing about that? Talking about agriculture that's going to take 10 years to mature. It doesn't make any sense.
So you mean you don't have any misgivings about this development by the Apex Bank at all?
No, I don't. I think it's a very good move. I think they should actually step it up a notch. I think that they waited a little too long. I think the president might have given them some directives that were not very well thought out, and hope, I gather that this happened when the president was outside the country. And then, acting president, Professor Osinbajo was the one that pushed this. Clearly, he had a different vision from what the president had initially. And I think that vision is a better vision.
Have you ever wondered why as a country, we run multiple exchange rate windows?
Yes.
Is it, I don't know, maybe we will get there, I don't know. Can we just have an official market window?
Yeah, well, that's what the CBN is trying to do now. Why they haven't done it over the past, 2 decades, 3 decades, 4, I don't know. But they're getting there now. Eventually, they will get there if they keep this momentum up, if they don't suddenly stop behaving in the correct way, because this is the correct way to behave. You are supposed to encourage your economy, not starve it. If you starve the economy, you basically starve, the people that voted you into power. You can't do that and then succeed and come back and help them again. So what they're doing now is they're encouraging people to, spend money on the things that are important to them, invest where they can invest, and grow. Now, talking about multiple exchange rates, this is Nigeria. This is the answer to the question. Nigeria seems to be an enigma in so many ways. We do things the opposite way, and we expect to get the results that everybody else is getting. Eventually, we will get there. The black market rate is actually the one that I am most concerned about. Why on earth would we allow a black market to exist? Nobody has been able to answer that question, even the CBN. This is obviously an illegal entity. We know it. We see them. We know who they are. You can see them on the streets. They are still there till today as we speak. I venture to guess this. Somebody somewhere in a position of power somewhere is benefiting, and that's why we have these situations.
Laudable initiative, like you said, by the central bank.
Yeah.
But also another argument is this: how sustainable is this? We know that our crude supply is a little bit, we have stability when it comes to the Niger Delta and all of that. But how long are we going to keep pumping billions, millions of dollars to sustain this, to defend our Naira?
We need to do it. We need to do it. Like I say, we're in a global economy. We don't live in a bubble. We live, basically in an ecosystem. And you have to function with that ecosystem. There's almost no country in the world that doesn't deal with the dollar. You can barely find any country in the world that doesn't deal with the dollar. So the moment we start to say we're not going to deal with the dollar so much as we should, we're basically cutting ourselves off from the global economy. And we can't afford to do that. I mentioned to you about the IT sector. India has become a near superpower. How did they do it? The IT sector was one of the sectors that pushed them to where they are today.
Another thing that just kept in my mind as you were making this point is the synergy between the monetary side and the fiscal side.
Yes.
This has also been an argument that analysts have always raised, that there is no synergy.
There's none.
I think some weeks ago there was a meeting before the last MPC meeting, and everybody's commended that was a good move. At least they were able to. But another news came out again saying the CBN powers are too much. They need to reduce the CBN powers of the central bank. The Ministry of Finance is having some. Looking at all of these actions, and I didn't know, it's falling back on the masses.
Yes.
How do you think there needs to be a synergy?
There needs to be a synergy. When two elephants fight, who suffers? The grass does. That's what's been happening in Nigeria over decades now. They need to get their act in order. They need to get themselves figured out. Now, the central bank is called the central bank for a reason, right? They're supposed to monitor these things. They're supposed to be in charge of certain things. They're supposed to have certain levels of power. So you can't actually take that power away from them unless, and of course, they misuse it, right? Now, with regard to the financial aspect of things, the finance ministry, for example, these are people who should be coming up with strategy. You have a portion of a group of people in government coming up with strategy and a group of people handling the monetary policies. You combine the two as a team and you have an impeccable, solution, something that you can take to the bank, as it were, and cash. But right now, we have people bickering, we have people not focusing. And I said this on the last time I was on one of your shows here. There's a lack of vision with the government. It is clear that there's a lack of vision. They're coming up together now with the latest FEC meeting. They're trying to come up with economic recovery plans and all that. That's good. It's good and it's laudable. And I will always give credit where it is due. But it needs to be done a little faster. It needs to be done much better. and the synergy needs to improve.
In all of this, we are trying to achieve a stable economy.
Yes.
That is all that we want.
Yes.
The man on the street should be able to have food on his table.
Definitely.
That is very important.
That's the basic.
That's a basic thing. Now, the last ratings by the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics shows that inflation seems to be recovering.
Yes.
I think that's what we have
It's
now.
about 17.7%.
17.7 from 18.8.
From 18%.
I think that's a step in the right direction.
Yes.
I want you to speak more on what are your expectations? Just like you talked about now, you've already talked about the economic growth and recovery plan, which everybody says is a step in the right direction.
Yes.
Now, looking at that vis-a-vis inflation rate kind of bouncing back, we're getting out of recession, because even the forex market is for stability. What do you make of all of these moves by the federal government and also the regulatory authorities?
So as I said, they shouldn't stop what they're doing. It's important that they continue. It's important that they come up with better monetary policies even than what we have on ground, right? I want to use a quick example. Ghana is a country we know very well. We refer to Ghana as our next door neighbor, well, not next door neighbor, but our neighbor and our friend. With regard to the forex, when it comes to Ghana, you know, when you look at the exchange rate for Ghana, you have a dollar to about 4 cedis. It's worth sighing over. This is Ghana. And then you look at the foreign exchange for Ghana, the foreign exchange reserve for Ghana is just about $5 billion. For Nigeria, we have about $27 to $29 billion foreign exchange reserve, yet we are struggling with the exchange rate. Something is wrong with the picture, and until they get to the bottom of it, we'll be here talking like this in another 60 years, unfortunately.
Something is wrong. Something is wrong. We
wrong.
really need to identify what is wrong, because even some are saying this new move, the commercial banks could take advantage of it.
Yes.
Some have said, in quote, that the commercial banks could take advantage of it and give this foreign exchange to friends. You know, maybe you want to travel, they could just, even if you're not traveling, they could just come with your visa, get some money, and still keep hoarding this foreign currency. I think the central bank needs to do more.
Yes, they need to do more. This is a government of transparency. That's what we were sold, right? They need to sit up with regard to how transparent they are. I say this all the time as well. I am for this government. Let me say this. I criticize them a lot, but I want them to succeed, is why I criticize them a lot. When I see them doing something wrong, or I see them not focusing on something they should focus on, it's only right to point it out. So I definitely want them to succeed. I voted for this government to come in, but they are missing out on that transparency just by a very margin. They're not focused entirely on telling the Nigerian people, opening all the doors, showing us exactly what's going on, making sure that it's impossible for people to do, you know, like what you just described that the banks would do. If I was talking to a partner at my firm, and we were talking about the fact that, on Saturdays, on weekends, when people spend money and exchange money into 50s and 100s, it's illegal. As far as I can tell, it's illegal. But it continues to happen. Nobody's doing anything about it. And the question then you ask is, who gives them those Naira notes? Clearly, the government knows who gives them the Naira notes. What are they doing about it? Are they taking steps to stop it? And that is where the question needs to be answered. It's not being answered, and that's why we're still here.
Let's go on this break now, and we'll be back with more on the show. You're still watching Business Nigeria. Stay with us, and we'll be right back to continue on this topic. Stay with us. Many thanks for staying tuned. Of course, you're watching Business Nigeria, and I have with me Kunle Olomofe here, who's been giving insight into issues surrounding the foreign exchange market and how it affects the entire economy. Now, Kunle, I'm back to this issue of series of exchange rates which we have, which brings in the issues of the black market and all of that. Many have said that the activities is actually affecting and distorting the exchange rate system. Yes. But some have also cited examples that some other countries do really have black marketers, but I think they operate maybe more transparently than they operate here in Nigeria. What do you think is wrong with this black market system? It's
not transparent, you just said it. I lived in Russia for a few years, about 5-6 years. And the Russian economy is based on the dollar, at least as far back as then it was. it wasn't based on the local currency, which was the ruble. In fact, we used to spend dollars in Russia as normal. You could go to the grocery store and spend dollars, hard cash. It was allowed. Now, when you wanted to buy money, or buy rubles or whatever, you would go to the Bureau de Change, the BDCs. But they had a level of black market there, like you said. But they didn't call it black market because it wasn't illegal. It was just a better option. It was competitive for you to do it that way, right? The problem we have here is these things, we call it a black market for a reason. It's hidden. It's done in secret. And when anything that is done in secret, you can be sure is going to have a lot of nasty angles to it. People are going to inflate prices. People are going to, they're going to act without, reserve, as it were. There's nothing monitoring them. There's nothing controlling what they do. And that is why that problem exists. Now, you raise a good point. Perhaps instead of chasing them off completely, perhaps bring them into the fold. Yeah. But the BDCs would disagree with you because the BDCs actually want the black market to be extinguished. It's causing them a lot of problems. You can't walk into a bank and do business. I mean, now you can. In the past few days, you can. You can't do business, with the bank when it comes to forex. There's so many there's so much red tape to go through before you can get what you want. The government needs to work on reducing the red tape. Once you do that, the black markets begin to basically have no reason to exist. If you get what I'm saying. With regard to red tape, connecting this to doing business in Nigeria. The government has this policy as well about increasing doing business in Nigeria, making doing business in Nigeria easier. Everything is connected. If you're going to do that, then you have to consider the foreign exchange situation we have, reduce the policies on there that stifle people from doing business with the banks directly. Once you do that, the black market begins to disappear gradually.
Okay, now we seem to be getting it right, at least at the level which we are now. Yes. I think the rate is about 400, I think, in the parallel market.
Yeah, well,
410.
Yeah,
I think round about that. I think the interbank is still.
Actually, I think it dropped to about 380 this morning.
How can we could still do better?
We could definitely.
How can we get it lower than what we have at the moment? How can we get it?
We can do it. It's ridiculous when you think about it. The dollar to the naira, and you're looking at 300, 400. At some point, it was 500. It's embarrassing. Forget that it makes life difficult for you. It's very embarrassing. We're one of the greatest nations on the face of the planet, right? I talked about Ghana just now, and the dollar to cedis is $1 to 4 cedis, and that's Ghana. Obviously, corruption is a problem. We have a government that is anti-corruption, yet corruption still exists in virtually every facet of life. The government is not focusing their attention on where they should. I said this about, actually almost as soon as the government came in. The Nigerian public really wanted corruption to be extinguished. I think you'll agree with me. That was why they voted for this government. They wanted this thing to be done. But the government seems to be focusing only on the larger picture of corruption, the people who stole billions. Those are not the only corrupt people. The down-to-earth Nigerian on the street is also corrupt. They need to start to focus on people like this and make it impossible for us to do things if we're doing it illegally, if we're doing it unethically. The second the government begins to focus on Nigerians, specifically the man on the street, you start to see a change. And that's what they're missing out on. Now, let me speak to this exchange rate. I mentioned a few minutes ago about information technology. There's a low barrier to entry into that industry. There's no need to think so much about heavy capital investment in this industry. We have the human resources already. Why is the government ignoring this to talk about long-term solutions alone? Long-term solutions are fantastic and they should stay with it because obviously you have to think about the future, but also you have to think about the present. There's not going to be any Nigerians left surviving by the time that those solutions come in if everybody starved to death. So you have to, continue to make the economy thrive. You have to make it function properly. You have to make it easy for investors to want to bring their money here. And the second they do that, the second they open the information technology industry, I guarantee you the dollars will flow in to the point where I mean, I can't tell you exactly what's going to happen with the dollar to naira exchange rate, but it's going to be far lower than what it is right now.
I tend to agree with you, because I was at a forum also last week at IT, something regards to IT, where Joel Chinamanda is from South Africa. He's the founder of JC Capital, and he spoke about how the IT sector can create jobs.
Exactly.
He said even without a degree certificate, you could actually learn data processing and programming in 6 months, and you're earning so amount in this country. He talked about that. How are we taking advantage of that in Nigeria?
We're not. We talk about in Lagos. We talk about Computer Village. If I mention Computer Village, I don't think there's anybody in Lagos that doesn't know these people. In there are brains you would not believe, rotting away, getting little pittance for the jobs they do. These guys, many of them can build entire laptops from scratch. What is the government doing with these people? Completely ignoring them. There are people, forget computers alone, there are people who will build inverters for you from scratch with their hands, completely locally made inverters that will work better than the foreign ones. What is the government doing with these people? Absolutely nothing, as far as we can tell, or very little. And that's where the problem lies.
And I'm sure this Forex thing will be biting hard on them too, because you know they do with importing and all of this.
Yes.
Hey, a lot needs to be done.
Certainly.
I must say, Kunle Olomofe, it's always nice having you,
on
the show. Thank you for your time, sharing your thoughts on this very important issue that is hitting hard on every Nigerian.
Certainly is.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Tolu. Thank you.
Well, before we round it up now, Nigeria has expressed commitment to support foreign investors who target their investments at agricultural mechanization, which will result in job opportunities. The Nigerian delegation to Crans Montana Forum on Agriculture and Sustainable Development disclosed this in Morocco. Well, that's a great one there. Well, talking about diversifying our economy. The move has also been taken outside Africa, and we're trying to make it work. Well, this is where we wrap up this edition of Business Nigeria. Well, we hope you join us another time for more insightful business analysis. I am Tolu Lokpe Ogunjobi. On behalf of the entire production crew, thank you for watching. I'll leave you with the figures of the exchange rate as it stands today. Bye for now.